Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this is No
No
Darkness
darkness but
But
ours.
Ours. So, we are two friends who happen to be horror authors, um, and we're here to talk about stuff we like, and which will hopefully scare you, um, since, after all, that is the point of the action.
Yeah, that's all. That reminds me, I haven't done my tax return. Um,
Damn
so I
it!
think it's scare me. Too easy. I know. Not
Yeah.
hanging through there. So we basically thought that we like to witter onto each other about stuff that we like, and conceivably other people might want to hear it too. So
Yeah. I mean, the good part is that we're both fairly smart, and better yet, that we watch widely, listen widely, read widely, both inside of our genre and outside of it. And what's fun is to suggest a pattern or a catch-all kind of subgenre, and to discuss that.
yeah, which is basically what we figured we'd do. Before we do that, though, I just want to publicly give a big shout out. Congratulations to Gemma. You just won the Stoker Award for Outstanding Achievement in a Short Fiction Collection for In That Endlessness Our End, which is fucking awesome, frankly.
It is fucking awesome, frankly. I
What,
got to come home from the Bram Stoker Con in Denver with a spooky house made of resin in my backpack.
not that kind
And
of
man, I gotta say, very heavy, very heavy. But I was, but it was worth it by the end.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm yet to win, and I've never won an award. I've been shortlisted a few times, but
I
never
can't believe
actually.
that. I can't believe that. You should have won a couple of awards by now.
Gosh, shucks, thanks. Well, again, maybe in the future. I do treasure one of the one review that somebody started reviewing, sort of stuff on the shortlist for one of the awards, and it was not very impressed with my novella, and said this isn't really good enough to be on an award shortlist, but at least it's eligible. You'd be picking over the eligibility, whether some of these others really counted as horror or really counted as novellas or whatever. So naturally, I used that as a quote on
Exactly.
the relevant page on my.
Definitely horror. Definitely a novella.
It's not really good enough to be on an award shortlist, but at least it's
That's correct.
that's what else can you say? One day, though.
Okay.
Is this your first award, or is the?
No, I won the International Horror Guild Award for the Emperor's Old Bones back in 1999, which was the first time I went to Denver. It looks like a little gargoyle. That award. I won a Shirley Jackson Award for Best Novel for experimental film, and the year after that, because stuff is weird here in Canada, I won it for experimental film in the same category at the Sunburst Awards, which is like fantastic fiction. Yeah.
What the hell? No complaints.
Yeah. I know. Yep. No complaints at all. So I have in fact won 4 awards. And I also won the best first novel at the very short-lived Black Quill Awards.
That
for Book of Tongues. Yeah.
I'm using the habit of reading sort of something to my wife of an evening when we sort of about to sort of help her. These days it's usually a novel. I'm working my way through the complete works of Jack Higgins, basically.
Cool.
Which is she has a soft spot for, although his chat techniques could get pretty much any guy who tried them, in hospital or prison. Just kind of it's this kind of thing where you immediately know that you like the girl and she likes you, and so you just fling an arm around her waist, pull her to you, and kiss her on the lips, kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure if I tried that,
it's
I'd be an A&D.
Yeah, I was watching. I was watching the Ipcrest file the other the other day, and was you can't help but be impressed by Michael Caine's style, but yeah, it's sort of like, I like birds, you're a cool bird.
One of our favourite moments. I mean, she's ready to kill me for this because that one of Higgins. I mean, of course, Higgins passed away a few weeks ago. Astonishing. I mean, whenever I feel, that a particular work of mine hasn't made as much of a splash as I think it deserves to, I just remember the fact that he finally became like a major best-selling writer with The Eagle Has Landed, which was his 36th published novel.
Wow.
But yeah, one wonderful book called Night Judgment at Synos has this fantastic character. He's like a Turkish skin diver, sponge diver rather. He's a friend of the protagonist, and right. He's very much kind of a lovable scoundrel sort of character.
Come with speed to the Casbah kind of guy.
Not quite that bad, but he's definitely a dashing rogue kind of type, and one of those people. If he decides he's your friend, he will kill for you if necessary, kind of thing. But there is a disco where there are a number of single women, many of them sort of middle-aged German housewives who are sort of out on that, and they are who are I think the phrase would be up for it. And he sort of says, see her, you see that one, she's giving me the eye. I go dance with her now. I rub her belly and see what happens. And this has just become a bit of a catchphrase in our household, and may possibly be evidence at our future divorce proceedings or Kate's murder trial, whichever comes first.
As long as neither of you shit on each other's pillows, I think you'll be fine.
We're not even touching the
that is as far as I'll go in that direction.
As Jesus said in South Park, my son, I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. But yes, sorry, so bringing me back full circle. I also sometimes read short fiction, of course, including some of yours, and I did read The Emperor's Old Bones to Kate as a bedtime story, and I'm still not sure she's forgiven me for doing so. I'm sure she's a bit worried about me, sort of hanging out with you online in case, I end my sort of sort of skeletonized remains turn up in a river or something. So you successfully got inside my wife's head and freaked her out. So
nice. Okay, cool.
Job done.
Yeah, job done. Okay, so the thank you very much, and it's an exciting time. I am energized in the best way possible, and hopefully things will come out of this, and I think they will. So what we were going to talk about today came about essentially because we both read All the White Spaces by Ally Wilkes.
Yeah. Really kind of very much blown away by it.
Absolutely. Yeah, both of us were hugely blown away by it. It's an excellent first novel, and quite amazing as a first novel.
So it's set in a kind of alternate timeline where it's kind of like it's kind of like the back end of the heroic age of polar exploration, and in this timeline, Scott and Amundsen haven't their race to the pole hasn't happened.
Right.
So the South Pole is still unconquered at this stage. And there's an expedition led by is it Randall?
Yeah, James Australis Randall, I think.
That's it. Yeah. Yes. To go there, and on the heels, there's been a previous German expedition which has vanished. And Jonathan, the main character, has basically this was something his brothers often talked about going on that. Right. On that expedition, and so he's following in their footsteps. And Harry, who was his brother's best friend, as you say, went off to war with them and came back when they didn't, has basically smuggled him on board the ship, heading to the South Pole, and hilarity ensues.
Yes, much hilarity. I had a friend who didn't like it very much because she thought that the main character didn't have a lot of agency. And I'm like, yes. Have you read Cosmic Horror before? Because nobody has a lot of agency.
Yeah, it's kind of agent. I mean, the main characters had enough agency to essentially, run away
Yeah.
from home, live a. I was going to say
Disguise
dress as a
yourself.
man, but
Yeah.
because I mean, the the character is characterized as a trans man.
Absolutely. And
And again, I'm never quite sure exactly where the boundary is, because I know quite a few women who would say that they would have been classed as, say, gender non-conforming when they were younger, because they didn't want to do the girly stuff that they wanted to go riding bikes and sort of playing football, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily make you trans.
I do feel that character has never thought of himself as a woman, and that even as a small person with all the parts, that the reason that he looks up to his brothers so much is because he sees them as perfect specimens of the manhood that he aspires to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of definitely the dividing line. Is certainly where the sort of attempted romance that Harry instigates doesn't kind of come off.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Like,
Harry thinks of Jack as a woman who has dressed up as a man, and Jack thinks of Jack as Jack.
Jack,
which is in. Yeah, is it Jack?
I think it's Jonathan. Oh,
Jonathan. No, right. Yeah, it is. It's John. John/Jonathan. Yeah. Harry thinks of John as a girl who has dressed up as a man, and therefore fair game for a cis straight dude to fall in love with, and John/Jonathan thinks of himself as John/Jonathan, and is just so happy to be amongst guys who treat him as a guy. I get the feeling that John is queer by those standards, and certainly seems to develop a very emotionally intimate relationship with the only other guy who is in a queer relationship.
Definitely. Which doesn't. Moving initially, of course, this thing is initially he sees that character as a as a threat, as a traitor. It's that thing of he's but of course John's trying to live up to that kind of idea of masculinity that's very much and so he's kind of like, it's like the zeal of the convert in a way. He's kind of like, a real man is patriotic and fought for his country and hates bloody Conchies and Germans and whatnot.
I mean, both his elder brothers signed up for World War I, and they were both killed in World War I. And Harry, who has been friends with John's brothers and with John since they were all little kids, followed John's brothers to war, basically. And he survived and they did not. And certainly it's working off of the old idea that either pole, really, but definitely Antarctica, is a place that's off the map. It's not completely mapped generally. It's a place that is a big white space. The idea is that you can go there and you can make your, perhaps not your fortune, but you can gain glory by penetrating into penetrans ad interiora mortis, right? Penetrating into the dead space, into the place where you are not supposed to go. There is we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about The Terror, about Dan Simmons's The Terror, and the wonderful TV adaptation of The Terror, done by Ridley Scott. But what I was going to say is that in the Arctic, there are people living there.
And in the Antarctic, there aren't.
Antarctic, no people. And there is this real feeling that the Antarctic is like the moon. It's as close to the moon as you can come, but it would be a moon that hates you.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with it. I mean, because we started with using because from all the white spaces as a starting point, there's this kind of whole subgenre of what you might call frozen horror, or icy horror. I don't know, cold horror. It doesn't a lot of this stuff that obviously happens at the poles, like the Terror, like when Lovecraft's about the Mountains of Madness is maybe one of the foundational texts for this kind of thing. Although, of course, even the opening of Frankenstein has a captain who's trying to penetrate the dead space, as it were, which is when he runs into the two of them. But I mean, of course, you also get kind of there is something about that whole kind of white frozen setting, and you get it in stuff like the Liam Neeson film The Grey, there's a survival horror there, or one of the few slasher films I really love, Cold Prey, the Norwegian movie. There's a whole, I mean, part of it is, I mean, because so many horror stories essentially involve the idea that the people in it somehow cross a boundary, willingly or not, from that separates the modern the quotidian world from something other.
Yeah, and something ancient and something unknowable and something empty. And like I said, when you're talking about the Arctic, that's stupid because you've got Sami people living there, you've got Siberian people living there, you've got Inuit people living there,
A shitload of people living there.
A shitload of people, who cross in and around and back and forth across the Arctic. It's like, yeah, you're right. People aren't living on the floes necessarily, but it's like most people who live in that general area have an idea of the survivability. They're sometimes you're courting it and something goes wrong, but there are ways that you can survive. Whereas Antarctica just seems to be like, why does this even exist? Because there's nothing there but snow and ice and, well, so far snow and penguins.
The penguins maybe, but
snow, ice, penguins, and various things living in the dark underneath the black water.
Because they've actually been founding like these gigantic Antarctic lakes, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly.
That I did see, and I don't know if it was true or not. It was a few years ago, before Wilford Brimley passed away. But some of the scientists discover, sort of strange new life form in the waters under the Antarctica. There was a tweet that had claimed to be, Wilford Brimley, trust me, you do not want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Because whenever anybody finds something, takes a core sample in Antarctica and brings up, it's like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. Everybody's like, it's the thing. Leave it.
Watched a movie.
Leave it alone. Have you ever watched a movie? Don't do that. Yeah. But humans really want to think that we're extremophiles. We're not. But we're really, really interested in going way too far down into the earth. We're really interested in, swimming through caves that could kill us. We're really interested in going to places that are so cold you can't walk outside, or, places that are so hot that, your suit would melt to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And thank God, because, horror, a lot of horror starts with threat, and a lot of horror starts with obsession. And those places are full of threat and obsession. You have to ask yourself, why do you want to go to an empty place? And
it's empty, I guess.
Well, in a lot of ways, yeah. It's like the map fills up. There's no places anymore where here there might be dragons. Yeah. And really, what is the thing except a very, very squishy dragon? In a lot of ways.
It's a monster. It's it's very in a way it's pure chaos, because it is without form.
No,
Oh, well,
not
I
at
mean,
all.
it's just like this constantly shifting, changing,
Yeah, I
chaotic,
mean,
massive.
and again, we'll breach into this a little bit more when we talk about the thing, but which is probably the most famous
Yeah.
thing to come out of Antarctica since At the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah.
And in fact, the thing, I think you could make an argument that the thing is kind of like a Shoggoth.